Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melinda Heinritz, and I'm president of the Madison Public Schools Foundation. On May 17th, the foundation will celebrate its 16th annual Circle of Friends luncheon celebration, which will culminate a year-long celebration of our 20th anniversary. During our history, we have now secured, through our partnership with the community, over 32 million in resources for our public schools. We deliver those resources in a wide variety of ways, including the Madison Public Schools Friends and Alumni Network, Teacher Support Network, Adopt a School, school endowments, fiscal agency services, among others. One of our biggest areas of program is now advocacy, and we have three distinct ways in which we present that and think about it. First, we are now the community's referenda hub. We successfully in 2020 led the Vote Yes to Invest campaign in support of MMSD's $350 million Future Ready referenda package. We also recently launched a statewide effort called Act Now to Invest, a coalition for Wisconsin's economic and education success. And of course, it's critically important to be focused on our own backyard. Issues, opportunities, things that we feel local community members should be aware of in terms of their public schools. In that vein, a year ago, we started candidate conversations because we think one of the most important things that community members can do is vote and be aware of our Board of Education and community members who are standing for election. So joining me now for a community conversation or a candidate conversation is Ali Muldrow. And full disclosure, our foundation board has an ex officio seat for a member of the Board of Education. And we are blessed to have the opportunity to work with Ali as a board member. So welcome, and I will jump right into some questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work you do, and thank you for that introduction. I'm so grateful to get to talk to you today, Melinda. So yeah, let's dive into questions.
All right, so we'll start with some definitely in the mode of just letting community members get to know you a little more informally. Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Madison. So I was born in Madison in 1987, St. Mary's Hospital, the same place as my oldest kiddo. There's a few generations of my family who live in Madison, and many, many generations of my family that live throughout Wisconsin. So I'm a local lady.
You're a Badger through and through. So what was your public school experience like?
I started my education as an Emerson Eagle, and I graduated from East High School in 2005. And, it was a mixed bag. I had, moments in my education that were truly devastating to me as a young person. I'll never forget in kindergarten, I had a teacher argue that I wasn't spelling my little brother's name right. And I told her to call my mom. And when she did, she came back and she said, Ali, I'm so sorry. Nobody in your whole family knows how to spell. And, those sorts of things, those moments really stand out because those are the moments in which the fact that my family was different was used against me and leveraged as a way to make me feel unintelligent. And I grew up with the achievement gap. I grew up Black in this community. So I feel like, the discrimination and racism of our community shaped my experience as a young person. I also had really outstanding teachers. I mean, people who changed my life, who made me believe in myself as an intellectual and as a leader. I got to be part of Simpson Street Free Press because I grew up here. I got to compete in the Black History Bowl thanks to 100 Black Men, and that was the first time I had ever been on a plane. So there were opportunities in our community for me as a young person that allowed for me to recover from some of what was really hard about growing up here. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Yeah, well, and I know we can absolutely count on you for passionate and candid answers. So thank you for your willingness to share. And how was that informed your service on the Board of Education? That upbringing and those experiences, and as an incumbent who's running to serve yet again.
Yeah, I think I am committed to having this community be a place for my kids that it wasn't for me. And I have 2 children in our schools. I have an 8-year-old at Lowell, and I have a 12-year-old at O'Keefe Middle School, and I have an 8-month-old baby. And I am determined to make sure that all of the young people in our community don't grow up the way we did, right? That we are creating schools that are welcoming for our LGBTQ youth, that we're creating schools that, you know, don't determine whether or not a kid can be successful, you know, based on the complexion of their skin, right? And so I am in it for the long haul. I've dedicated my life to this community. I've been working with our young people since I was 19 years old. I think that our kids deserve great schools and excellent education, and I am willing to work long and hard for that.
Well, you articulated in many ways. I've been in this work about 6 years, so you have a lot of experience on mine. But it's the reason I get up and go to work every day, and it's a pretty darn good reason to commit to helping every one of our kids have a great experience and move on to what they want to do and what they dream about in the future. So a couple of little less softball questions. I'm sure you're aware that the state of Wisconsin is sitting on an unprecedented surplus. And as I mentioned in the introduction, the foundation now has a statewide outreach effort called Act Now to Invest, which is partnering with business and industry leaders to champion, hey, we need to invest more in Wisconsin K-12. You know, what have you been following about the state surplus story? What are your thoughts about it? Is this an unprecedented opportunity to invest in our economy and our kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one, I want to say when it comes to state politics, I'm incredibly grateful for our governor, Tony Evers, for his leadership, for his commitment to making sure our schools have resources. I also want to say I'm really disappointed by our legislature and their lack of willingness to invest in our young people, especially because this is not an issue that divides Wisconsin. Communities across the state of Wisconsin, just like Madison, passed referendums because people want their kids to have excellent education. They want their kids to get the skills that they need to achieve their dreams. And so this should be something that brings us together, right? Our schools, our teachers, our children, that's where we agree. And it's crazy to see our representatives not honor that about who we are as a state. Wisconsin has a long legacy of prioritizing education. And this recent phenomena of building a campaign against education, of defunding education, has, you know, the consequences land with our kids and with our educators. And that's something I think we have to do a lot of work to fight against. And I think we have to be really strategic. It's one of the reasons I'm a huge advocate for fair maps. It's one of the reasons I think that we as a school board need to stay involved and invested in our legislator and in our governor. And it's one of the reasons I appreciate the work you all are doing so much at the foundation. So well, thank you for everything you all are doing.
Well, and I think that's, you know, when our shared work in a community, how do we take an issue or an opportunity, or however you want to describe public schools, out of the political arena and into a conversation around common ground and what's best for our kids. So certainly that's part of what we're striving toward, and really appreciate your comments in response to that question. Now an interesting one. There seems to be a national conversation about this thing called parental rights, and as they relate to public schools. What are your thoughts about this national conversation?
So I'm going to start by saying full transparency. I am at the Dells with my children right now. I am a full-time parent first. I have 3 kids, and that is part of what makes me a good member of the school board. So there's a little splashing in the background. And secondly, I think the conversation around parental rights, I think that that's an inappropriate way to frame the conversation, honestly, because what this conversation has really been about is about stopping parents from, you know, advocating for their kids' right to transition. It's been a conversation that is about targeting transgender children and evading their privacy to an extreme extent, whether that be their right to pursue medical intervention their right to, participate in sports. I don't know any parent who wants their child to be more likely to engage in self-harm. I don't know any parent who wants their kids' identity denied to the point of, causing devastating and irreversible impacts. I've worked with LGBTQ youth for the last 8 years. All of those data points that we talk about, the fact that students are more likely to engage in self-harm, they are more likely to engage in suicidal ideation, they are more likely to actually complete suicide. These are real things. And this legislature, this trend in pitting schools against students and against families is really dangerous and deeply frightening.
Yeah. Thank you again for, as always, a thoughtful and candid response. And from that to lighter fare and a little sillier, but again, in the spirit of just letting people get to know you as a full person. Favorite TV show? So we'll go from the super serious to not at all.
I love this question, and I love this shift in tone. I'm like, I'm gonna get it together for this one. But right now, my favorite show, my partner is a teacher as well, and we really love Abbott Elementary. If you have not seen it, it's so excellent. It's such a fun show, and it's kind of a mockumentary, like has the vibes of The Office, but if it was taking place in, a modern day elementary school. So definitely, I recommend it. Check it out, y'all.
All right. That's the second vote for Abbott Elementary. So I will make a point of watching it. We'll call it work, right?
Yeah.
Book. Personal favorite, fiction or something that, just informs who you are as a person in your professional or Board of Education sphere, or any of the above.
Oh, man. I mean, I think Dinesh Smith, Don't Call Us Dead, is a book of poetry that I feel like changed my life. And I think James Baldwin, everything James Baldwin, has meant the world to me to be able to read. August Wilson, as a writer, as a playwright, has changed my life over and over again in terms of the way I think about gender dynamics and the way I think about race. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a really hard time with this question. I really love reading, and I feel like there's some great people who have brought great books into my life. I will say my first favorite book was If You Come Softly by Jacqueline Woodson. And If You Come Softly is a quote from Audre Lorde. So thank God I got to read that book because it opened up the world of Audre Lorde and Octavia Butler to me. Adrienne Marie Brown. Yeah, some really brilliant writers and storytelling.
Life is short and there are too many books, but I always like the problem of too many books. I think I have about 12 on my nightstand right now. As a parent of 3 kids, I don't know if you get to have a Madtown hangout, or maybe you do with your family. What are your favorite places in town?
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. So Leopold's Bookstore is like my all-time favorite date night place. Okay. And it is totally family friendly because you can have a really cute dessert and you can read with your kids. And it's also just kind of gorgeous. And then I love like coffee shops. Lakeside Coffee has a really cool playroom in the basement. And yeah, I love all of our public libraries. I'm a huge fan of I live 200 feet from the library, from the Hawthorne Library. So that's, now that we're getting out a little bit more, I will say I spent most of my first term social distancing or in quarantine. So we're just now, I love all the beaches though. Tenney Park is like one of my favorite spots for my whole life. I grew up going to that park and it's like just, a wonderful place to spend like a good weather day.
Yeah, it's kind of an iconic Madison space, isn't it? So we are in our 3rd calendar year of this pandemic. Any quirks, behaviors, new hobbies, anything that expresses in a way you'd want to share? You know, it's changed all of us in some fashion. What does that look like for you?
Well, I mean, a lot changed for me during the pandemic. I became the president of the school board during the pandemic. So I was, I was leading not when we closed schools as much as I was when we reopened schools. And that was really a complex thing. I have to say, I am lobbied nowhere more intensely than in my home by my 12-year-old, who is a huge fan of school and really wanted me to reopen them as soon as possible for a year straight. So that was part of my daily conversation. I felt like Matilda's parents, she just like really wanted to go to school. And I was like, the pandemic is real. So I think, we had a baby during the pandemic. So going from 2 kids to 3 has shifted the way we operate as a family. I think we spend more time outside because, that became a more, a healthier and a safer way to spend time with family and friends.
Right.
So I think we got some good routines. And then we also, I have started to really go to the Church of Carbohydrates. We baked a lot in quarantine. So I've got some really good banana bread recipes if folks want to check it out.
Yeah, it's even to this day, the level of activity out and about on sidewalks and around the neighborhood. It's like, who knew so many people actually lived in these houses? People being out, and the number of dogs, which is a perfect segue to who knows what else you could fit in your life, but did you get a pandemic pet?
So we had a puppy, actually, a dog named Wild, who is, he thrived during the pandemic. If there's anybody who won the quarantine, it was definitely Wild. And he's about 3 years old, and he was really essential to everybody's happiness.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. They're so wonderful.
And keeping the routine, right? Like walking him and going to the dog park. And those were some of the most social spaces we had for a while.
They're so incredible, I think, for your mental health and sense of well-being and happiness. And as I shared with you via text, right now we have 8 canines in our household, 6 puppies. So we have lots of smiles. Before I get to the last question, just anything else you want to share? You're always so, as I said, candid and passionate and open, but anything else you want viewers to know?
Oh, I think I want to, thank Madison for passing 2 historic referendums while I was in office. I want to, thank people for continuing to be united for public education, for continuing to mask and be as safe as possible, for getting vaccinated. I think that people don't talk about it as much as we should, but this moment in Madison, there was a lot of solidarity across Dane County. There was a lot of unity. And I think so much of the country was so divided about how to navigate this pandemic. And it is that solidarity that kept our schools safe. Right. And I'll remember that always. And I'm so grateful to live here because of that.
Yeah, that's very, very well said. And sometimes we forget to tout those successes so we can celebrate them together. It's obviously been a rough couple of school years. Superintendent Jenkins, a huge fan, hard for him to articulate and be out in the community with a vision, given the challenges. You've been there right on the front lines. What makes you optimistic and hopeful as we finish the 21-22 school year, get ready for summer school and into a new year, 22-23?
I feel like what keeps me hopeful is that this year, with everything that's happened and all the stress that we've all experienced, we were able to give educators, universal mental health days. But also this year, at that same time that all of this has happened, my 7-year-old learned how to read, and there's no denying how important our schools are right now. And I think that more and more people realize that they want their kids in schools, that public schools are essential to our community's ability to function. And I think we are more invested in our schools than we've been in a long time. I think we're paying attention to our school and our school board. And I think that's a really good thing. And I think that, you know, Dr. Jenkins has brought an incredible level of leadership to this community during a time that, you know, I think challenging is almost too gentle of a word. It was,
Right.
We have survived things that are unprecedented. You know, when you're on the school board, people vet you for hundreds of hours. They ask you dozens of questions constantly. No one ever asked me what I would do if a global pandemic shut down schools.
Yeah.
No one ever asked me that. And to have gone through something like that as a community, and really seeing people lead from a place of compassion and a place that prioritizes, you know, our young people who are medically fragile, our young people who are navigating disabilities, our young people in our communities of color. I think it's pretty inspiring. And I tell folks all the time, the best part about living in a world that is unjust is fighting for it to be just. So I really love getting to do this work, and I really love the people I get to do it with.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again for being with us today during your family vacation, from the sounds of it. And thank you for the background noise of children, very appropriate. We wish you all the best next week on April 5th. Viewers, don't forget to go out and vote. And thank you so much, Ali, for serving our community and your willingness to once again stand as a candidate for our Board of Education. And I'll just finish. This is the last of our 5 candidate conversations with our community. Nothing is more important in our community than public schools. And we respect everyone's perspectives and opinions and things that are on your mind about our public schools, but don't stand on the sidelines. Get in there with us, volunteer, vote, give, mentor, be a part of our public schools, whether you have kids in them or not, because working together, we can make this the best public school system in the country. That's our aspiration, but we need to do it together so that our kids graduate from high school, are ready for college, career, and community, and they want to stay in this community and build it with us for the future. Best wishes to everyone. Thank you again. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.